Today I want to continue our conversation about arcs. We, in our first couple of animations, we have just basically been trying to understand how to make, shapes move around as a result of the tool that we're experimenting with. And the tool that I'm using here is After Effects. However, many motion graphics programs work in very, very similar ways to how After Effects is designed. And they all use this idea of keyframes and some level of easing. The way that the easing works in various programs can be different, but not so different that you can't figure it out quickly. So today, what I want to do is I want to look at one more shape-based exercise before we get into animating actual people. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to look at how to animate an arc, and I'm specifically going to use the idea of a pendulum. And then next week, we're going to do a very similar thing by animating some simple finger motions. And hopefully that will begin to give us a concept of how we can animate larger things. And we'll see that grow over the coming lessons. So again, I'm going to open up After Effects and go to just a standard 4K project, and I'm going to set my length to something really, really small, like 8 seconds. And what I'm going to do, just like usual, is I'm going to go to my my shape-based tool, and I'm going to click and hold so that I can grab any of the shapes, and the specific shape that I want in this case is the ellipse tool. So I'm going to create a circle. Let's give it a color other than black. Let's see here. What's a good color for today? I think I'm feeling orange today. All right. And I want to define a string or a way for this pendulum to be held. So I'm going to create a very thin thing that is holding the pendulum in place. Okay. Now that I've got that going on, I'm going to go to the transform controls on this layer, and I'm going to press Y. Y is the key command to be able to change the anchor point. We've talked about the anchor point a couple times, but I don't know that I've ever given you the key command for it. And the specific place that I want to put the anchor point is sort of at the top of where the pendulum is going to be rotating from. See, now that I've done this, whenever I change the rotation, it's rotating from the point where the pendulum is being held from, right? So this is going to be a pretty fast animation to get us ready for what's coming next week. Because next week, in order for us to do the animation we're going to do, we're going to have to do a little bit of drawing. So this is our last exercise before we get to actual drawing. Okay, so here we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set my rotation to be about, let's go with, yeah, that's fine. Let's do 75 degrees. And I'm going to give myself a rotation keyframe. And then 1 second later, I'm going to give myself I'm going to put that at negative 75. And let's see if that spins the way I mean for it to. Yes. All right, cool. Now I'm going to grab those two keyframes. I'm copying. I'm going 1 second in the future and I'm pasting. I'm going another second in the future and I'm pasting. I'm going another second in the future and I'm pasting. And I'm grabbing my very first keyframe and I'm copying it and I'm pasting, but I'm going to move it over 1 frame. So that way when this thing loops, it'll be a clean loop. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these rotation frames, and I'm going to control click, go to keyframe assistant, easy ease, and just see what it looks like as a starting point. Now, realistically, that's a pretty fair starting point. So I'm going to go to my what do you call this? The graph editor. And basically what I want to do is every time that it gets to the middle, I want it to be going slower. So every time it gets to one of these edges, pardon me, when it gets to the middle, I want it to be going faster. So when it gets to the edges, I want it to be going slower. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select every one of these keyframes that I have going, and I'm going to extend and I want to extend this in a way that's fairly symmetric, you know. I'm extending the edges of the Bezier handles so that it gets held in place longer at the places where it's holding, because I want it to sort of swoop and hold, swoop and hold. So that's pretty good. Let me go a little bit further with it. There we go. Now, hopefully you are already imagining ways that you can use this in the process of animating other things. This having been said, since this was such a quick animation, I want to talk you through two things that are going on here that are technical to the specific program After Effects, specifically related to how we get our animations out of After Effects to be able to use them. So in this particular scenario, I think the easiest thing to do is to go to Composition, Add to Render Queue, and now you have a render queue where you can set the kind of file format you want it output as, and you can set the location you want this thing to land. You know, when I'm trying to do high quality animation, I will typically go from the H.264 output, I'll change that to QuickTime, and then make sure that as far as format options are concerned, I'm either using animation or some level of ProRes. And specifically the one that I like a lot is ProRes High Quality HQ. But animation is probably the one that I like using the most. The problem with the animation codec is that when I output it like this, there are very few. I don't have any players on my Mac that'll play it. Like I then have to actually like drop it into, you know, Final Cut or some video editor in order to see it. Part of the reason that I like the animation codec, though, is because I have all of these options. And specifically what's going on here is that if I were to choose RGB and alpha is, you know, this is a gross misrepresentation of the idea, but alpha is the idea that I'm including transparency. So basically, if I output this, my pendulum would be an animation that I could take into a video editor and put it in front of other footage without having to worry about the white background. The white background is not going to show up in this particular scenario. So anyway, then we hit render, and it's going to render as the title comp1.move where I told it to go to. But I'm not going to do that right now. But that's basically the system that we use in order to output our videos. Now, next week I look forward to drawing with you.